Hello there, all you lovely people of Townforge. It's time for another video by Suksu. And the reason for this video is that we are transitioning from version 0.23 into version 0.24. And the chains are not compatible, so I thought it would be a good idea to make a tutorial / mechanics video on how to import and export your Townforge buildings. We saw some great things built in this testnet, but it's time to move on. But I don't want any of you to be losing any of your creations, so I'll be showing you different mechanics and aspects on how to propagate your creations to the next testnet. So enjoy. Alright, first things first, by the time you're watching this video, we're no longer running Townforge version 0.23. So please do not launch your diamonds if you still have that version, because you'll be pushing bad blocks into the network and causing all kinds of issues. So it's time to move on, whether it's 0.24 or if you're watching this later on when we might have transitioned into even newer testnets. You can find the Townforge blockchain from in Windows operating system. You can find it from C, program data, Townforge LMDB, and the blockchain by default is the file data.mdb. So I'm going to copy that, and as you can see, I actually have some old copies also from previous chains, and I don't want to lose any of that. So I'm going to be copying that, so I just have a copy just in case I want to go back to this version for some reason. Other thing, if you do want to launch the game in version 0.23, you should do that in offline mode. And that you can do with the Townforge daemon with the parameter offline. It will then start reading your data.mdb, but it will not sync into other nodes. So we're fine in that respect. So you'll be losing the network, but you won't be messing up anybody else's game. So that's how we have now version 0.23 running, even if the main network is already version 0.24 or further on. And also for you people who are running other operating systems in Linux and Mac, you can find the Townforge blockchain in the similar default directories as you would find the Monero blockchain, unless you have put it into an alternative location based on a parameter with the daemon, which is then you only know where it is. But in Linux, you would be looking at the hidden folder Townforge and LMDB similarly as before. This is a really old blockchain, and I'm running this in a virtual machine, but just for clarity's sake, this is where the blockchain would be on a Linux, on Ubuntu in this case. Alright, so now we're running the game, or at least we're running the daemon, but we want to launch the game itself. And we are currently running the daemon in offline mode, as shown before. And then we get down into business of actually importing and exporting Vox files from the existing buildings. Alright, and then for a basic example of importing and exporting, I have some longhouses over here that I actually copy pasted, and we're going to check up what are the building stats. We see the amount of sandstone, pine and vegetation used in this particular model, and we need a lot to fit that criteria. As to exporting the model itself, we typically want to export whole flag. So we go into build submenu and select whole flag, and then export model whole. And I can see I already have an example Vox file here that I named Longhouse 64 by 64 because that's the dimensions of that particular lot. So you can save that Vox file over there. Then we need to type the new lot. We're gonna make that also, let's actually check what were the building settings. Basic residential of economical power 200. So let's make the other example also it is of similar size, 64 by 64, and then we are going to assign that into basic residential economical power 200 and call that paste example. It needs to be typed. You cannot import a model otherwise. So now we have that queued, and in our offline little chain we now have typed it into a basic residential of the similar settings as the original one. Then we select the whole flag and go into build and import model, and it will read in that voxel file. There are some settings to move the model around. We are currently happy with the settings, how it laid down over here, a little bit lower than the original model. So we are pressing OK and then approving that to push it to the chain. And as you can see, we have 25 blocks currently waiting to be mined to the paste example, and that's going to be pretty fast because I'm running an offline testnet with fixed difficulty of 1000. So I'm going to have a copy-pasted longhouse from over here to over here in just a moment. Well, I'll trust you see me build this whole thing, so I'm going to be splicing the video so you don't have to wait. Alright, then oftentimes you don't want to have the exact same size of lot, so here I have created a lot of size 80 by 80. I'm going to be importing one of these longhouses in here. I'm gonna make that into an affluent residential with sufficient materials and call that larger lot. I need to get that typed so it can have a building imported. See the materials being poured in, and then we can select a 64 by 64, or we can select the whole flag, import model, and as you can see it imported the model, and we can then move it, and if we go to the compass we see that this is north, so let's place it remotely into the center of the building. So we need to go a little bit eastwards and then a little bit to the north, and then I'm happy with that. The flashes mean that blocks are being discovered, but I'm happy with this plan, and I'm going to approve it as is, so it's going to get mined. Oh, we had a game tick as well, but the game now pushed those into the transaction pool, and we're going to see the same building mined into a larger lot. I'm gonna show it all the way to the end because yeah. And one typical thing you would like to do probably is import and export a part of a building, and for that purpose I'm going to go to my pixel art museum and export one of these pillars that are size 10 by 10. So I'm going to export model selection, call that vox file pillar 10 by 10, save that, and then I'm gonna head over and make some pillars in here. So we need to first type that building again. Let's call it cultural building of 200 economical power, and pillar place is the name of that building. And one thing you need to keep in mind is that you need to have the materials required for your building to be mined. And for example, I know that my pillar in that museum is made of marble, and there's not enough marble present in this lot, so I'm gonna assign let's say 2000 marble into the lot. So we're gonna see this value of marble jump into 2382. Now we should have a sufficient amount of marble. Remember that the selection of that pillar was 10 by 10. So I'm gonna actually do that selection over here and select import model and bring in a pillar. Let's actually bring in another one as well. And let's put it over here. 10 by 10. As you can see, it's hovering a little bit above the ground because that's the position it was in relation to the ground in the original building. So I'm gonna import another pillar, and I'm happy with the positioning of them. So I'm gonna just press accept even though they're hovering above the ground, but just for the sake of the example, let's see how that goes. And we can see that pillar place is currently mining over 60 pillars because that's the height of that, and those slices are getting in. Hovering a little bit above the ground, so I need to work on that, but we just copied part of an existing building to the target side. Alright. Alright, something to point out, if you want to be absolutely sure that your beautiful creations are going to get to the next testnet and have the place that they deserve, please try to go for the same lot, location and size as they were in the previous testnet. Obviously this cannot always be the case, but let's take an example of my windmill over here. I can see that the lot begins at position minus 32 and minus 713, and at the end of that lot on the other end is 63 and minus 808, and we can see that the size of this lot, or actually it's easier to use the select whole flag, is 96 by 96, so that's where the coordinates come from. So if you want to be sure to get your building exactly as it was in the previous testnet, please try to use the same coordinates because that's the easiest. And yeah, that's about it. That covers the basics of importing and exporting. Obviously there's going to be ironing of bugs and fine-tuning of the little things to make it easier, but the Vox files are your friend when you don't want to recreate everything from scratch, because you put a lot of time into your beautiful buildings, which I really love to see people put to the version 2.23 testnet. So thanks a lot for watching, and I hope to catch you in the next testnet. Cheers!